Have you ever felt like no matter how much you plan and schedule, you're always falling behind? It's exhausting, isn't it? We've been taught that to be productive, we need to manage every minute of our day. But what if that's the wrong approach? In Mind Management, Not Time Management, David Kadavy introduces a refreshing idea. Success isn't about cramming more into your schedule. It's about working with your mind, not against it. David Kadavy never saw himself as a writer. But when he landed a book deal, he couldn't refuse. He had to figure out how to make it work. He tried the usual tricks, blocking out time, cutting out distractions, but nothing seemed to help. That's when he discovered something unexpected. The secret to productivity wasn't about controlling his time, it was about managing his mental energy. Instead of forcing himself to follow a rigid schedule, he started aligning his tasks with his natural mental states. This shift made all the difference, allowing him to make real progress on his book. David Kadavy didn't always see himself as a writer. Writing wasn't something he particularly enjoyed growing up. But one day, he was offered a book deal that would be hard for anyone to refuse. Determined to write the book, David began planning his life around it. First, he made sure to carve out significant time for writing. He cancelled dinner plans with friends, stopped going on dates, and even started having groceries delivered to save time. David was fully committed to finishing the book, devoting all his energy to it. For many writers, words flow naturally, as if their mind is constantly spinning with ideas. But for David, the process was anything but natural. He would sit down to write and find himself staring at a blank screen for hours, unable to get anything done. As the deadline for his manuscript approached, the pressure mounted. David needed to submit 25% of the book to his publisher in just a few weeks, or risk losing the deal. The thought of disappointing his family and friends weighed heavily on him. In a state of panic, he decided to attend a retreat in Costa Rica. Though he had a feeling he wouldn't get much writing done there, he hoped the change of scenery would help break his writer's block. Once there, David regretted saying yes to the retreat. Desperate to clear his head, he left his room and started walking around. That's when he met Diego, a friendly stranger who called out to him from across the road. Diego waved David over, and they started chatting in Spanish. Not wanting to seem rude, David played along and engaged in the conversation. Their talk was brief but refreshing. Diego simply enjoyed talking about life, the beach, and the rain. Though short, the interaction left David feeling recharged. When he returned to his computer, something clicked. In just an hour, he managed to write the first chapter of his book. Reflecting on this breakthrough, David realized something important. It wasn't about finding the time to write, it was about being in the right mental state. Time management, as he once thought, was no longer effective. What truly mattered was mind management. Mind management is about prioritizing your creative energy. However, it's not as simple as just focusing on your tasks. It's about understanding how your mind works. Have you ever stared at a long to-do list and felt completely unmotivated? It happens to everyone. But with mind management, you can break through that mental block. Mind management means looking at your tasks or problems from a different perspective. In time management, you might ask yourself, what can I get done right now? But this often leads to procrastination because you lack the focus or motivation to begin. On the other hand, mind management asks, what task am I in the mood to do right now? And what should I work on that matches my current mental state? The key to getting things done efficiently is aligning your mental energy with the task at hand. This way, you avoid wasting valuable resources like time and energy. Creative work isn't something that comes easily to everyone. You can't just buy creativity like you would groceries. It's a process that takes time. Whether you're telling a story, writing a song, or painting a masterpiece, your state of mind plays a crucial role. David Kadavy talks about two types of thinking that help him tap into his creative mode: divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Divergent thinking happens when your thoughts are scattered. You're considering many different ideas at once. Then, as you start connecting those ideas together, you shift into convergent thinking. Take writing as an example. You have something to say, but there are many ways to say it. First, you think about what you want to communicate. Do you want it to sound formal, or do you prefer a conversational tone, like you're chatting with a friend? Should you take credit for it or remain anonymous? That's divergent thinking at play. Convergent thinking comes in when you choose one of those options. Let's say you want to write about your first love. You decide to take a friendly tone with your readers, but don't want to reveal your identity. You see, both types of thinking, divergent and convergent, are needed to create brilliant ideas. But how do you find the best ideas? By identifying your creative sweet spot, the time and place where your creativity is at its peak. Creative work isn't something you can accomplish by following a guidebook. It's not governed by logic or mathematical formulas. Instead, creative work stems from an insightful process, often referred to as an aha moment. According to neuroscientists, insight is when you suddenly see things from a new perspective. You can think of insight as a eureka moment, the type that brings tears of joy to your eyes because you've finally cracked something. Have you ever suddenly come up with a brilliant idea? That's your eureka moment. Maybe you found the perfect words for a song or unlocked a crucial plot point in your story. Perhaps you remembered a favorite cartoon character to sketch when you were stumped about what to paint next. That's insight at work. Discovering your creative sweet spot isn't just about finding the right time of day. It's more about recognizing the energy and focus you need to produce your best work. Your energy levels don't stay consistent throughout the day. Some tasks, like work meetings, socializing with friends, or even painting, can drain your energy. That's why you need to find that golden time in your day when your energy is at its peak. You also need to align your work with your body's natural circadian rhythm, which controls your sleep-wake cycle. Imagine this rhythm as a line that climbs upwards throughout the day. The longer you're awake, the more alert you become. However, this alertness is counterbalanced by your sleep debt system. If you don't get enough rest, your sleep debt builds up, causing your energy to drop. This is why around 2:30 p.m., when your circadian rhythm and sleep debt lines intersect, you might feel a dip in energy. Understanding how to manage your energy and focus is key to unlocking your creative potential. By embracing mind management, you align your tasks with your natural mental states, paving the way for true productivity and creative breakthroughs. You often feel sluggish and tired. By understanding your body clock, you can better manage your focus. Many people find they are most productive in the morning, for example. Top violinists spend the first 2 to 4 hours of their day practicing with full concentration. Famous writer Virginia Woolf and psychologist B.F. Skinner did the same. Morning is often when people are most awake and alert. To make the most of your creative sweet spot, David suggests following what he calls the first hour rule. This principle helps you stay disciplined by dedicating the first hour of your day to your most important project. And it's not just any project, it has to be your highest priority. By focusing on it first thing in the morning, you'll be much more likely to finish it sooner. Does this sound too good to be true? It's not. By starting your day with the task that truly matters, you reduce the chances of procrastination and remove potential obstacles before they even arise. The 4 stages of creativity. Even when you're not actively writing or painting, you're still working on those creative projects in your mind. Creativity isn't limited to the moment you're sitting at your desk with a pen or brush in hand. Social psychologist Graham Wallace outlined the 4 stages of creativity, which guide us through the entire process. The first stage is preparation. This is when you're thinking about every aspect of your project. Who are the characters in your story? How long will your song be? What materials will you use for your painting? This is the brainstorming stage, where you gather so much information about your project that you become like a walking encyclopedia. David Kadavy followed a similar approach when working on his book. He didn't write every single day. In fact, there were days when he would sit in his living room surrounded by books, newspapers and journals, absorbing ideas. His whiteboard would be covered with possible topics and chapter outlines. All the research David did wasn't a waste of time. It was helping him get ready for the next stage of creativity. The second stage is incubation. This is when you step away from actively working on your project. You might be focusing on something else or spending time with friends and family. Taking breaks is essential. Forcing yourself to finish a task right away doesn't always work. In fact, it can lead to frustration and anger, making it harder to reach your creative sweet spot and move on to the third stage. The third stage is illumination. This is the eureka moment, the sudden insight that strikes like lightning. This stage is difficult to explain because it's unpredictable and can happen out of nowhere. But without proper preparation, you won't get there. You have to spend a lot of time in the first stage to allow this breakthrough to happen. Let's take a look at how the first stage can lead to the third by examining an example from Paul McCartney of the Beatles. Paul famously composed the timeless song Yesterday in a rather unusual way. He heard the melody in a dream. When he woke up, still half asleep, he rushed to the piano and played the tune he had heard in his sleep. And just like that, one of the greatest songs in history was born. But it wasn't as simple as it sounds. Before composing Yesterday, Paul had been writing and creating music for years. His years of preparation allowed him to recognize and capture the melody when it came to him. And he didn't stop there. Paul ensured he completed the final stage of creativity. Verification. The fourth stage, verification, is when you take a step back and critically evaluate the eureka moment from the illumination stage. You ask yourself whether the idea is sound, foolproof, and brilliant. You double-check that nothing is missing. Paul wasn't entirely sure his melody was original. He feared that it might have been something he had unconsciously heard before. At the time, there were no apps or software to check whether a melody was truly original or not. So Paul spent a year and a half making sure the melody was indeed his own. During that time, he refined the lyrics, tune, and arrangement of the song, perfecting every element. If you don't dedicate time to each stage of the creative process, you won't be able to produce a masterpiece. Every stage is necessary for creativity to flourish, and skipping any part of it would only hinder the final product. The 7 mental states of creative work. David Kadavy didn't have a strict routine or rigid rules for his creative work, but he did have certain tasks and places that helped him get into the right mindset for writing. For instance, he often went to the 95th floor of the John Hancock Center just to jot down some notes in his little notebook. Initially, his thoughts would be scattered, but once he started writing, he would realize what else needed to be included in his book. This place helped him organize his thoughts and gain clarity. Another favorite spot of David's was a coffee shop called Ipsento Coffee. The stunning views and the rich aroma of coffee beans made it the perfect place for him to settle into a creative flow. Just like David, you can align different types of work with different mental states. Your mental state can shift between 7 key states. 1. Prioritized mental state. This is when you're focused on planning. You're deciding what needs to be done and how to go about it. It's also when you determine what's important and what's not. This is what David did during his time at the John Hancock Center, where he would prioritize and strategize his writing. 2. Explore mental state. This isn't about structured research. It's about allowing your curiosity to wander freely without guilt or rigid expectations. For example, you might want to paint something but aren't sure what. As you search for inspiration, you might end up watching an entire documentary about the history of painting, letting your curiosity take you wherever it wants. 3. Research mental state. In this state, you seek specific answers to specific questions. David often found himself in this mode, researching how to structure a chapter or verifying the facts he intended to include in his book. 4. Generate mental state. This is where you actually create. It's the stage where you take the ideas you've gathered in the previous states and put them into action. Whether it's writing your first draft or sketching out your initial design, this is the hands-on creative work. 5. Polish mental state. In this stage, you refine and edit what you've created. You check that your sentences make sense, ensure there are no unpainted spots on the canvas, or adjust the intensity of a color that might need to be lighter or deeper. It's all about perfecting your work. 6. Administrative mental state. You can't focus on creative work all the time. There are other responsibilities that demand attention, like paying bills or spending time with your family. This mental state is crucial because it allows you to balance your creative life with other important aspects of your life. 7. Recharge mental state. Mental state. Sometimes you need to take a break and refresh yourself, whether it's taking a day off, going on vacation, or even getting a massage, like David does when he feels stressed. This state helps you relax and rejuvenate. Even watching funny videos or a movie can help. Find ways to calm your mind and recharge your creative energy. By recognizing these mental states and learning to work within them, you can optimize your creative process and stay productive while avoiding burnout. Creative cycles. David had an unusual routine. From midnight until 4 a.m., he focused solely on his book. At 4 a.m., he would turn off the lights, shut down his computer, and sleep until noon. In the afternoon, he'd get ready and head to a coffee shop where he worked until closing time. This is what David calls a creative cycle. It's a recurring rhythm that allows you to progress in your work while giving yourself the necessary time to rest. The creative cycle involves 4 stages: preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification. The creative cycle doesn't have to be based on specific hours of the day. It can extend over weeks or even align with different seasons. Let's look at an example. Beth, for instance, prefers to do the first stage of creativity, preparation, at night. The quiet of the evening helps her focus, and she's able to gather a lot of information for her songwriting. Around midnight, Beth heads to bed, moving into the second stage of creativity, incubation. While she sleeps, her mind takes a break from her creative work, allowing her to rest. By morning, Beth feels refreshed and inspired, transitioning into the third stage, illumination. As she eats breakfast, she experiences an aha moment. The perfect lyrics for her song come to her, and she quickly jots them down on a nearby napkin. Beth then spends the entire afternoon in the final stage, verification, refining her song. She replaces some words with better ones and selects the best instruments to play the tune. There are many ways to manage your creative mind. The key is finding the rhythm that suits you best. Whether it's following a night owl routine like David or a more balanced approach like Beth, creative cycles help you tap into your full potential without burning out. Creative systems. David once found himself in a tough spot. He was scheduled to interview Dr. Rock for his podcast, a figure who had been a major inspiration for him. Dr. Rock wrote the book Your Brain at Work, which had helped David understand how the mind functions in creative work. David considered Dr. Rock his idol. But the day of the interview brought several challenges. First, there was construction happening at the apartment David had rented, and the noise was relentless all day. It was the worst possible environment for recording a podcast. Second, David had recently moved to Panama City to work on his book, and didn't know the neighborhood well enough to find a quiet place for the interview. Third, David knew that rescheduling the interview was impossible. Someone as renowned as Dr. Rock was always busy, and this felt like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It seemed like the outcome was clear. David would have to cancel the podcast. Nothing was going right that day. But then something changed. David's creative system kicked in, and he wrote an email to Dr. Rock. Somehow, his sense of hopelessness disappeared. He tackled each problem head-on, finding solutions for every challenge that had been standing in his way. In the end, David managed to record the interview with Dr. Rock successfully. A creative system is a repeatable process that helps you move forward with your creative work. It's designed to guide you through each step while conserving your mental energy. You can think of a creative system like an umbrella that covers your creative cycles and the stages of creativity. It oversees the entire process. At the heart of the creative system is the minimum creative dose. This is the smallest, simplest action you can take to keep your creative work moving forward. For example, if you're a writer, your minimum creative dose might be writing just one paragraph. Focusing on this small task helps you balance your other priorities while still making progress. Creative work also benefits from open loops. Here's an example. When you feed your cat, you might notice that the food is running low. You make a mental note to buy more cat food from the store. This is an open loop because buy cat food keeps running through your mind, even while you're doing other tasks. Open loops take up space in your brain, and that mental space only clears when the task is complete, when you finally buy the cat food. While this may seem like a negative thing, open loops are actually beneficial for your creativity. They keep your projects alive in your mind, helping you continue making progress. Let's go back to the writing example. If you write just one paragraph for your book, that creates an open loop in your mind that you can return to the next day or the day after. Over time, you'll keep adding more paragraphs to that original one. Even if you don't spend your entire day writing, you won't feel guilty. As long as you're moving forward, you'll maintain momentum and avoid losing progress. The best part of the creative system is that you can have multiple open loops at once. One loop might be about the plot of your story, while another could be about the backstory of a character. A creative system also eliminates excuses. You can't say you don't have time because the minimum creative dose only takes a few minutes. With this approach, you'll always find a way to keep moving forward in your creative journey, no matter how busy life gets. Conclusion. In this summary, you've learned some key insights on how to manage your mind for better productivity and creativity. First, you discovered what mind management really means. It's about setting the right mental state for the work you need to do. Instead of forcing yourself into tasks, you ask yourself, what task am I in the mood to do? And what can I do that matches this mood? Second, we explored how finding your creative sweet spot helps you achieve mind management. By applying both divergent and convergent thinking, you can create those eureka moments that lead to breakthroughs in your creative work. To find your creative sweet spot, you need to identify your most productive time of day. Many people find the morning to be ideal because it's often free from distractions. Third, you learned about the 4 stages of creativity. To create something remarkable, you must go through all these stages: preparation, incubation, illumination, and verification. Fourth, we discussed the 7 mental states of creative work, which help you complete these stages. These states are prioritize, explore, research, generate, polish, administrate, and recharge. Fifth, you learned about the creative cycle, a repeating process that balances creative work with rest. The creative cycle helps you figure out the time frames that work best for you, whether it's a week, a month, or even a particular season. By understanding and applying these concepts, you can enhance your creative process and achieve sustained productivity. Lately, we talked about the creative system which oversees your creative process. This system is a recurring structure that guides you through each step of the creative cycle. It helps you decide what steps to take and how to take them. In today's fast-paced world, Everyone seems obsessed with doing more in less time, but there's a unique joy in taking things slowly and savoring the process. So don't rush. As the saying goes, good things come to those who wait. Enjoy the journey and let creativity unfold at its own pace.